In late July, Brad Sams, executive editor at Thurrott, reported from an anonymous source that Microsoft was developing not one, but two next-generation consoles to succeed the Xbox One. One console would reportedly be more conventional, while the other would be a streaming box to work with Microsoft's upcoming game streaming service, which, according to Sams, was codenamed Scarlet Cloud. This report, while not confirmed, has echoed a prevailing sentiment. This console generation is about to end. As to when it'll end is mostly speculative. Dates like 2019 and 2020 are often thrown around as possible years in which we'd see the launch of a new console generation. Indeed, 2020 was the year Sams reported we'd see the next Microsoft consoles launch. But honestly, I find it more interesting to speculate what we'd see rather than when we'll see it. With regards to last generation, this generation has gone by a little quicker, and the ways in which the major consoles have diverged away from one another may have never been this diverse. Microsoft's Xbox Game Pass and Xbox Play Anywhere continue to be, at least in my opinion, the Xbox One's biggest and best recent innovations. PlayStation 4, maybe the most successful console of this generation, by far has the best catalog of exclusives, integrated VR, and definitely the worst controller. As we move forward toward the inevitable conclusion of this generation, I find it fascinating to wonder about what direction the next consoles might take. How will they change? What features will be ditched? And how will the climate around games and game development affect them, if at all? Unfortunately, we don't have the answers to these questions right now, and probably won't have them for some time. So why not speculate? For PlayStation and Xbox, the beginning of this generation couldn't have been any more stark. Xbox One's life started about as poorly as possible, and ever since that fateful reveal conference that's been forever eternalized by memes, the console's been playing catch-up. The initial reveal was miscommunicated and muddled, with policies including DRM, requiring a check-in every 24 hours, forced Kinect integration, and game sharing all of a sudden made confused, culminating in an Xbox One that felt more complicated than it needed to be. Fans and consumers were understandably upset and frustrated. Xbox One, as it was originally conceived, was far from what we'd consider your average plug-and-play console. Fast forward a few months after the reveal, and Microsoft took an about-face, reversing course on the original concept and ending many of those policies fans found so unpopular. While I firmly believe what Microsoft attempted with the original Xbox One was wrong, it doesn't mean some of that concept wasn't interesting, and some of it was even a little ahead of its time. PlayStation 4's revealing months were flawless in comparison, now highlighted by a 22-second instructional video showing how to share games on the PS4, a direct swipe at Microsoft.
Thanks.
PlayStation.
Less than a month into a new generation, and Sony had already made people forget who took the public role of hero and villain just a generation earlier. We've come a long way since the days following Xbox One's disastrous reveal, when hastily animated GIFs of a PlayStation logo destroying an Xbox logo dominated internet comment sections, and both consoles have changed a lot. But the defining issue, at least in my opinion, of this generation has persisted since that infamous day 5 years ago, all the way up to the very day I'm writing this. Xbox One has an exclusive problem. I don't think it's wrong to say that what makes a console look most desirable to most consumers isn't the look or even the nitty-gritty hardware details, but the games themselves. And all throughout this generation, Xbox One has had real puzzling trouble with that. Major critical successes could be narrowed down to Ori and the Blind Forest and Cuphead. Gears of War 4 was good. Halo 5 was better than Halo 4, but not better than any other Halo, and after that, a few solid exclusives are all that data-sparse release line. PlayStation 4, on the other hand, has the opposite of an exclusive problem. From Bloodborne to Uncharted 4 and God of War, it's a lineup of both new and blue-blooded IPs, making up numerous Game of the Year contenders and even a few of the greatest games of all time. So as we progress and speculate on the future of these consoles, I think it's important to keep in mind that everything we discuss, from features to hardware, are all secondary to games, an issue Xbox is continuing to struggle with. Moving on from games, the two features we mentioned earlier, Xbox Play Anywhere and Xbox Game Pass, may be the biggest innovations of this console generation. First announced in 2016, Play Anywhere meant all titles published by Microsoft, and even some more, would from then on also be playable on PC. Game Pass, launched in 2017, itself isn't much different than Sony's PS Now service. They both offer a range of titles, including titles from previous generations. Key differences being that Xbox Game Pass is cheaper and that you download games, while PS Now streams them, and that Xbox Game Pass includes all first-party exclusives. I haven't had a lot of experience with PS Now since its launch in January 2015, but I put in a few hours for this video. Quality is pretty inconsistent, and fidelity certainly takes a hit. Some games are unplayable and others run fine. You're able to stream on laptops and PCs too, which can really improve the quality of play depending on your PC's build. I wouldn't call PS Now terrible, but Game Pass offers much better pricing options as well as a better experience overall. Also, I'd be remiss here if I didn't mention a report in June by Kotaku UK's Rich Sten, who, citing an industry source, confirmed Sony would be adding a download option for PS Now subscribers. According to the report, this edition would launch in late September this year. If this were to happen, PS Now would instantly be much more attractive, neck and neck with Game Pass, assuming it works the same way Game Pass does. Pivoting back to Xbox, as I said earlier, I think Play Anywhere and Game Pass rank among the biggest and most fascinating moves of this entire console generation. A $10 a month subscription nabs you plenty of games on the Xbox, as well as all exclusives. For PC gamers, that means most of those games can be played on your home desktop too. If Xbox One had an exclusive lineup similar to PS4, Game Pass would represent a massive leg up on PlayStation, though less so if PlayStation does eventually allow you to download your games. This begs the question, however, of what happens to people like myself that own both an Xbox One and PC. If all Xbox games are also playable on PC, what reason do I have for owning an Xbox One, let alone whatever the next Xbox is? It definitely seems like there isn't one, but I think the real question is, does the number of people that own an Xbox One and gaming PC outweigh the number of people that own only a gaming PC but will subscribe to Game Pass now that an entire new catalog of games, including the next Halo and Gears of War, exist that you can only get through Microsoft? I'd bet there are a lot more PC gamers willing to subscribe to Game Pass than buy a new console. I'm going to posit a scenario, and for this scenario, don't worry about your personal opinions. Instead, I want us to pretend we're Microsoft executives, perhaps wearing sweet blazers. Anthem is EA's version of Destiny or The Division. It's a game as a service. It's made for long-term monetization, and whatever you think about games as a service, again, we're executives right now. Imagine if Anthem fell under the Game Pass umbrella, meaning players on both Xbox and PC can either purchase Anthem at full price or subscribe for $10 a month. And again, with that subscription, you get all the Xbox exclusives and more. As a matter of fact, you can already play The Division on Xbox through Game Pass, so while Anthem falling under Game Pass most assuredly won't happen since EA already has Origin, their own storefront, it doesn't mean a game the style of Anthem or Division couldn't be made specifically to fit this scenario. This brings us back to the report by Brad Sams that Microsoft is planning 2 next-generation consoles, one of which is a streaming box made to work with Microsoft's upcoming game streaming service. As of right now, Xbox has 2 subscription services, Xbox Live and Game Pass. Introducing a streaming service into the mold makes me wonder how Microsoft would reconcile its existence alongside that of Game Pass. Downloading games may take longer than directly streaming them, but streaming puts the onus on latency. The quality of play hinges almost entirely on your internet connection. If Game Pass and Scarlet Cloud exist simultaneously, you'd think Scarlet Cloud would need to be near perfect almost all the time to compete with a service that allows you to download games directly to your hard drive. Gaming has been slowly but surely transitioning toward an all-digital future for quite some time now. Hell, I don't even know if they still make gaming PCs with disk drives anymore. Console gaming isn't far behind in this regard. We discussed the Xbox One's initial concept earlier, part of which would have severely curtailed both physical and secondhand copies 5 years ago had it not been changed. An all-digital future just makes too much sense, both from a practicality and economic standpoint. Could PS Now or Xbox Game Pass be the early version of a largely digital future on consoles? Whether or not they are, I think the next burning issue is backwards compatibility, another area Xbox leads and PlayStation seems unwilling to budge. If Microsoft themselves are to be believed, backwards compatibility on Xbox One has been a smash hit, the company announcing in May that players logged almost 1 billion hours playing backwards compatible games. Sony has been quieter on this front. The company hasn't offered a concrete reason as to why the PS4 doesn't have backwards compatibility, nor if it plans to include backwards compatibility in PS5. You could point at PS Now as Sony's answer to backwards compatibility, but PS Now is plainly inferior to both downloads and physical discs. As I said, I'd take a service that allows me to download games over one that streams them any day of the week. Xbox has set a precedent. If backwards compatibility wasn't worth the effort, if people didn't use it, then why brag about players logging almost 1 billion hours? If the next Xbox does not include backwards compatibility, I'd have to assume it would be universally seen as a step back. Conversely, Conversely, if the next Xbox is announced with backwards compatibility, that puts pressure on Sony. Imagine a reveal where the next Xbox includes Game Pass with all Xbox exclusives, a streaming option, and every Xbox game you own still works. The reception would be great. Then imagine if the next PlayStation was revealed without backwards compatibility and PS Now continues to be the lesser option between it and Game Pass. The reception would not be great. Launching a console without a disk drive kills backwards compatibility, which again, Xbox has touted and PlayStation has avoided during this generation. But having a disk drive or something equivalent means you still offer physical copies, which means your game streaming or downloading service has to compete with used and physical game sales. This is what the original incarnation of Xbox One attempted to solve, but failed in effectively communicating it and buried it under a heap of other unpopular policies. And Sam's report of two different consoles seems to fit nicely here. One console being more conventional, meaning backwards compatibility is possible, while the other is all digital. So if Xbox has Play Anywhere, Game Pass, maybe backwards compatibility, and a reported streaming service up its sleeve, what does Sony have? PlayStation 4 has sold better, fielded better games, and really, between it and the Xbox One, is the better console of this generation. Is there anything else it has the Xbox doesn't? Yes, and it's two words: virtual reality. PSVR has been a relative success, eclipsing 3 million sales in August this year. Calling it a huge hit might be a little too much, but you can't call it a failure either. While I haven't experienced PSVR myself, reviews and word of mouth paint a great picture of it. VR itself is amazing. I've said before that I'm a VR apologist, and I continue to be. I've poured hours upon hours into my Oculus with titles like Onward, Star Trek Bridge Crew, Iron Wolf, Beetle, and more. The hardware is great and feels great. It's really only an issue of giving me a good enough reason to put the headset on, a great game, of which I have plenty, though the medium could definitely use more. PSVR is the easiest and most affordable VR platform out there. It may not be as powerful as HTC or Oculus, but its price and seamless integration are major factors. And I'm not sure if anyone knows for sure how, if at all, Sony will handle VR going into the future. Microsoft skipped VR this generation, and that makes sense. With the way the Xbox One family of consoles have sold, you'd imagine an Xbox VR headset wouldn't be anywhere near as successful as PSVR. PlayStation carved themselves a corner of the VR market during this generation and succeeded. Abandoning that could be a sign the market isn't as fruitful as some might think or want, but it would also leave that corner open to Microsoft and their mixed reality headsets. While there's no confirmation we'll see VR integration in the next Xbox, Microsoft's insistence on creating a Windows ecosystem where everything is connected makes you wonder more so why they wouldn't. Imagine mixed reality headsets made to work with Windows and the next Xbox, one device for two platforms. That would be huge, and I think it would make a lot of sense, but I am completely speculating.